Thank you. And Senator Collins, the ranking member, the vice chairman of this committee, thank you for your leadership. And Senator Sheen, thank you for your kind remarks. And I too share the desire and outcomes that we've been able to achieve working together to satisfy our colleagues, but more importantly, to try to do the best we can for the benefit of the American people. I'm pleased that we're here. This is always a roller coaster, and it does seem to me that we're now back on path for consideration of our bills on the Senate floor. I'm counting on Senator Schumer and his commitment that all 12 appropriation bills will be considered, and that's hugely important for this committee for its work to be considered and those results concluded. It also helps us in explaining to the American people what we're doing. It's hard to do things when every bill is combined with 11 others. You begin with a black eye in the way that we've been doing things. And I want every member of the United States Senate to have an opportunity to make their mark on these bills. So I'm pleased that we're where we are today. I've enjoyed and appreciated the chance to work with all my colleagues in trying to get this result. The Fiscal Responsibility Act reduces this bill's capability of spending by $1.3 billion. There are those who have criticized, perhaps more on our side than on the Democratic side, that the Fiscal Responsibility Act didn't do enough. I don't know what enough always is, but I want to point out to those critics that Senator Shaheen and I are working with $1.3 billion less as a result of the passage of that legislation. So when people ask for fiscal responsibility, this may or may not be enough fiscal responsibility. We still have huge debts, and interest rates are a challenge, and inflation is a problem for every American. But at least as evidenced by our work, we are working with a lot less money than we have been working with in the past to accommodate and to accomplish this legislation. I would divide our bill up into three categories. The first is the Department of Commerce. This agency's funding is completely flat. If there's any excess in their budgets, they will have to accommodate that, the inflationary increases that are going on within the department. Small increases within that flat funding were provided for supply chain security and for critical emerging technologies, things like ITA and NIST. These were priorities for many Republicans, and they were a priority of Secretary Raimondo. The mark increases by $200 million NOAA satellite expenditures to recapitalize the weather satellites that are in our orbit. A hugely important thing for Kansans, but for all Americans, the weather. And we were able to accomplish that as a result of the efforts by Senator Murray and Senator Collins and the addition of $350 million to our bill to deal with emergency circumstances. And the inability to keep satellites in space for weather is one of those. So the Department of Commerce flatlined spending, a few ups and downs in priorities that we made. In the Department of Justice, the top line number was cut by $817 million. That's a 2.13% reduction. All the DOJ agencies received modest increases of 1% to 1.4% for their salaries and expenses. That's where the increase, there again, we have cut the spending at the Department of Justice by more than $800 million, but we've given them the opportunity to pay their salaries and staff salaries with a potential of a 1 to 1.4% increase, something less than inflation. This is not enough to pay the inflationary costs, but it should help enormously in avoiding layoffs, particularly at the law enforcement agencies within this budget. Small increases were added to a handful of grant programs that have broad bipartisan support: Burn JAG, RIS, Anti-Opioid Task Force, and VAWA. The FBI's construction account was cut by $591 million. Consequently, the FBI's top line is cut by $458 million. NASA is cut by $383 million, a 1.5% reduction. I'm a supporter of NASA and space exploration, They will have significant challenges in continuing all of their programs. I'm disappointed by that. The science community and certainly NASA contractors, they will be disappointed in that as well. These deep and painful cuts were inevitable under the deal that the Speaker and the President cut. We were able to protect the most important national priority within NASA's budget, at least in my view, which is to return humans to the moon and maintain our strategic advantage in space. NASA will have a lot of work to do to figure out how to continue on the programs they are currently planning. And then with NASA, I said I was doing this in three components. We have the Department of Commerce, we have the Department of Justice, and then we have science. NASA is a significant component of that, but another one that is hugely important to the country and one that this committee cares a lot about is NSF. And it is basically level funded. They faced about a $39 million cut. We did what we could to protect CHIPS and Science Act, and again, with the money that the chairman and ranking member found for us, we were able to provide additional support for NSF. Finally, within that NSF top line, EPSCoR, which matters a lot to me and to many on this committee, was increased by $20 million, a 7.8% increase. I generally have, in giving my remarks about what's in a bill or what we're doing today, I've done it in a broad way. I wanted folks on the committee to hear more specifically what the challenges were and how we address them. And some of the things in there people will cheer, and some of the things in there people will be terribly disappointed by. So we have done our work to the best of our abilities and to try to make certain that with the dollars that we have, that good things happen. I think I'm about done.
And
because you want me to be done?
Yes.
So maybe I should say I am done instead of about done. But if
I
you
won't
wouldn't
take a
mind,
vote on
Chairman,
that, but yes.
I'd like to thank Senator Shaheen again and her staff, Jessica Berry, Blaise Sheridan, Lindsay Erickson, Mike Bednarczyk, Angela Callum, and my own staff, Brian Danner and Kevin Wheeler. And thank you both.